Here in D.C., there is a growing group of young conservatives, aged 25 to 35, that are not only doing a great job and an effective job in changing the narrative in this town, but they're also having a blast doing it. We've got a panel of two bright stars of this movement, starting with Amber Athey. She is the host of the Unfit to Print podcast and Washington editor at The Spectator. And Doug Blair, you'll see a lot of him. He's the producer of this program and also a special correspondent. Guys, thank you. This is a really important conversation. I'm glad you're here for it.
Thanks for having us, Larry.
Amber, let's start with you. Am I wrong? There really is this growing group, 25-35. I get to party with you sometimes. And you are all placed in a position right now where you're making a real difference in terms of the daily media news cycle for conservatives.
Well, here's how I think that really came to be. Conservative media is not as caught up in the educational status or age of its reporters and the people who are working within it. You go to the legacy media and everybody has to go to journalism school and you have to attend the most elite universities. And there's just not that attitude in conservative media. It's a pure meritocracy, and they love the young energy of a lot of us and what we're bringing to the table.
Now, Doug, you had a bit of a different route, right? Because your last stop before joining us was in the think tank world at Heritage. And people think of Heritage, and that's 90-year-old bald men with cigars and blue blazers.
Well, that was the thing, right? The perception about Heritage was that it was all these white papers, and it was sort of crusty old dudes writing about things from the Reagan era. But as time has gone on...
Not that there's anything wrong with the Reagan era.
No, man, I do love me some Ronald Reagan. The man was a genius.
Ancient history.
Exactly, right? Dinosaurs. But the idea being that there was that perception, and I think a lot of younger people don't really respond to that. But with Kevin Roberts, the new president of the Heritage Foundation, that started to change a little bit. As well, during my time with the Daily Signal, which is the Heritage outlet's multimedia and news arm, we started to focus on topics that younger Americans started to care about. We started to focus on culture. We started to do these things that maybe people weren't thinking about beforehand because they weren't as relevant to the think tank space. But as culture has become even more and more important into determining what is a conservative and what isn't, I think it becomes a lot more valuable for these types of organizations to adapt with the times and pull that type of content into their roster.
Well, and people also have to recognize the kind of renegade work you guys are doing. You both represent stories in the last 6 months that have made a difference and have been done in sort of a subterfuge kind of way. Doug, we'll start with you. You were on Capitol Hill during the Dobbs protests, right? Everyone's really their hair burning on fire because Roe v. Wade is overturned.
Right.
You're there for Daily Signal Heritage Foundation, and you caught the greatest video of the year. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez carted off by the police, and she was wearing invisible handcuffs.
Right.
And you were there, and you guys knew that there was something stupid and crazy was going to go on.
Right. No, I mean, that's the thing, right? I think a lot of people are sort of curious about how we can make an impact, and it's almost part of it is just being there. A lot of younger people, and I'm sure Amber agrees with this, a lot of younger people kind of recognize that the mainstream outlets, the corporate propaganda news outlets, aren't going to do their due diligence and actually research the truth. They're going to push the Democratic narrative. So when somebody goes out there with the intention of saying, I'm just going to cover what's happening, it's almost a shock to the system. I didn't necessarily go out there to cover AOC pretending to get arrested.
Sure, who would have guessed? Oh,
exactly.
Hey, I better get out there because AOC is going to pretend to have handcuffs.
But it just happened, and none of the other outlets did it. That's
the other thing. See, no one else would have been there to grab it. No one else cared to grab it. And even if they got that footage, let's face it, they would have hidden it. I mean, and Amber, I remember when you grabbed this story when the mask mandates were all over the place. And at Kennedy Center, one of the top people at Georgetown who you knew and recognized explained that they were about to implement, or they were implementing mask mandates at Georgetown, but then she went to the Kennedy Center in a theater.
Exactly. It was the top public health official at Georgetown who was making the decisions regarding vaccine and mask mandates for college students who are one of the lowest risk groups of individuals when it comes to catching or having a severe case of COVID. She made this big deal about how the campus was going to continue having mask mandates throughout the spring semester and also require students to get booster shots. Well, then she goes to this awards ceremony at the Kennedy Center surrounded by people. I don't know how she thought that this was not going to get out. She just sort of innocently snapped a selfie of her and her friend.
Well, what do you mean how did no one would get out? She put it out, didn't she, on her Instagram or something?
Well, she put it on her Twitter. And she clearly thought that nobody was going to think to go after her. I don't know if she realized once you start making health decisions for the 7,000 undergraduate students at Georgetown, you become a public figure and people want to see that you're abiding by the same things that you're implementing on others.
So because of her demands, somebody in a classroom in Georgetown would have to wear a mask, but she was, what is it, 8 blocks?
Yeah.
Down 8 blocks away at the Kennedy Center.
It doesn't take that long.
Right.
It's maybe a mile.
She's there in a theater packed with people, and she's got no mask on.
No mask on. And just, I think she had a caption too that was sort of laughing about the safety measures or lack thereof in the Kennedy Center, and just the lack of self-awareness was so infuriating.
I love that.
Naturally, she deleted the tweet and Georgetown had nothing to say, but a lot of parents saw that story and reached out to me and said, thank you, because our poor kids are being, harangued all the time on campus. They're not even allowed to take a sip of water in the library. And this woman is out there flouting the same so-called safety measures.
All right, speaking of tweeting things that get you in trouble,
oh, yeah.
Amber. Well, if anyone recognizes you and knows you, it's because they know famously you were unjustly dismissed from your job, a job that you and I did together, because of something you tweeted out. But this is a real hazard. I mean, obviously this was unjust and it shouldn't have happened to you, and I'm still angry about it. That's why you're here on my first day here at Salem News Channel. But this is a real landmine that you guys have to maneuver. You are the first generation of journalists and activists who have a paper trail. What's the problem here? I mean, we know what the danger is, but is this something that you're very cognizant of all the time? Because the rules are different for a conservative on social media than a liberal.
Yeah, I think I used to be really cognizant of it, actually, before I got fired. And since that happened, because it was such a ridiculous reason, and for those who aren't familiar, it was because I made a joke about Kamala Harris's State of the Union outfit and said she looked like a UPS employee.
She did look like a UPS employee.
Which she did.
Because she was dressed head to toe in brown.
Exactly.
And what's
what
UPS's
can Brown do for you?
What can Brown do for you?
It's
That's racist.
I know, you can't say that anymore. So after that happened.
Really? We can't say it anymore?
Apparently not.
What can Brown do for you?
Larry,
apparently nothing.
O'Connor Tonight is canceled.
There it is. I'm done.
The show's over.
Gotta
but after that happened, I guess my mindset shifted a little bit to thinking, okay, clearly, even if I'm careful, I could still get fired.
Even when you make a benign joke about somebody's outfit.
So why would I continue to try to censor myself for the sake of not being canceled? I mean, the reality is the left and the people who support cancel culture will twist and manipulate anything a conservative says to try to destroy them. So I think the more powerful response to that is not to self-censor, but for all of us to band together and stand up for each other, and for the organizations that host our content to, frankly, grow a pair and start defending their employees.
100% agree. And by the way, that again, right from Andrew Breitbart, apologize for what?
I also think I would get fired for saying grow a pair at certain places too.
Yeah, we might have to bleep that out, actually. We'll see
what about
it.
the non-binaries?
Real fast, Doug Blair, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this segment, and we're going to continue doing these segments, so hopefully you can join us again, Amber. A lot of people my age or even older than me, their kids go to them and say, hey, I want to join the media. I want to be a journalist. I want to be an actor. I want to be in the performing arts. And sadly, we say, no kid of mine is joining that industry. It's too liberal. It's too left. It's too... Help us out here. Talk to me about how it actually is okay, because there is a fun community here and you are making a difference. And by the way, you think the media is liberal all the time? You think Hollywood is liberal? It's because those liberal parents are encouraging their liberal kids to get into these industries.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great point, because again, if we keep telling people not to do these things, then the left just conquers it even easier, right? There's no forces to sort of resist them in these industries.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, though, it is almost sometimes as simple as just showing up. Right? A lot of people don't necessarily understand that it's just going there, getting the work done, putting your nose to the grindstone and covering it. With AOC, it really wasn't like this planned out thing. It was just, I showed up, filmed it, and guess what? It just happened. So you're never gonna get like these types of stories like every single time, but it's the diligence, it's the march, the long march through these types of institutions that like allows us to maintain them as independent, non-partisan industries as opposed to leftist talking points.
And this is how we make it. Amber Athey, Doug Blair, love you guys.
Thanks
for
Larry.
being
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
We will be right back on O'Connor Tonight.